What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create this only possible on Solana hoodie. I'm not going to have the markup available, but if you want to follow along, you can create it yourself. I'm going to be taking you through the process on CLO and then bringing it into Blender to texturize. Let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to do in CLO3D is going to add a male avatar. So I'm just going to drag and drop this one straight in from our library. The first thing we're going to do is use our polygon tool to create a basic pattern of it. We're just going to create the one half as we're going to create a symmetric pattern from this section. We can use the edit curvature tool to create some curve points. And then once we are happy with that, I'm actually going to bring this out a bit. We're going to click on our pattern, right click and say symmetric pattern and paste it in. We're just going to create a little bit of a separation here and press N on our keyboard to segment sew the two pieces together. And then we're going to select both patterns, copy and paste it in. In our 3D viewport area, bring this to the middle and then bring it back. We can press 4 on our keyboard to get a side profile. Let's select the front to bring it a little bit closer. And we're now going to use a segment sewing tool to sew the back to the front. Make sure that these pointers are aligned. As you can see here, if I flip it, the sewing is going to be reversed and we don't want that to happen. So we can either press B on our keyboard, right click on that area and reverse the sewing and it will be fixed, or we can just go back and redo it. So I'm going to do this for both sides like so. We're going to use the fast GPU. If you don't have a GPU, you can use the normal renderer. So let's press render. If it does fall down, don't worry. We can select our pattern in the 2D viewport window, bring it up and just reposition it. For some reason it does this. I don't know if you guys have the same issue, but if you do, just this is how to fix that. And then let's press render and we should get the result we're looking for. I'm going to go to my fabric here and just change the color so I can see it a little bit better, like so. And then we're going to click on the front of our sewing, right click and say merge. This is going to bring the pattern together and keep that symmetry. We can do that for both the back and the front. Let's hit simulate. So far that's looking good. For the front, I'm just going to make this a little bit longer, the neck hole. And then we can now bring the sides out of our hoodie. So let's select the sides and just bring them out by using the pattern edit tool. And we can resimulate, and using our select or move tool, we can just reposition this while the renderer is going. The next thing we're going to do is create the little line that goes down the middle. So we're going to use our internal polygon tool and just select just below the armhole and create a little pattern and press enter. Because we have symmetry going, it will automatically create the other side. We can then just fix this until we're happy with the results. Pretty happy with that. And then we can select this line, press Ctrl C and Ctrl V it onto the back, and we should have our pattern going. The next thing we're going to do is create our piping. So let's go to our piping tool on the top here. And we're just going to draw a line all the way across like so. Press enter. This will make it on the back, and then let's do that to the front as well. I'm going to just edit this piping, so you can select the piping and just make it the particle distance 0.8 and the width 2, and we can do this for the back. As you can see, you can't see the back, so we need to flip the back section. So let's select the T, right click and say flip normals, and we should see it like so. Then we can click on it and set it to 0.8 and 2. Okay, so far so good. I'm just going to create the bottom section, the ribbing piece. So let's bring this up using Z. Just to fix the bottom here, we're going to click on this point to bring it up, and we're going to do the same to the back. So just select this point, bring it up, and then we can just bring this up a little bit more, just like that. We're going to use the rectangle tool to create a rectangle at the bottom. This is going to be our ribbing section. You can just reposition it, and we're going to press N on our keyboard to sew these together. So press shift to select the one side and do the other side, and then we can copy and paste this just below, take it to the other side, bring it up. We're going to right click and say flip normals, bring it to this side in our 2D pattern window, and do the same thing in, press shift and sew these together like so. Then we can sew these lines together. We can use the 3D viewport window for this, and we can hit simulate. Perfect. We're then going to select this ribbing and set the shrinkage weft to 35 and hit simulate. This is going to create some nice ribbing for us at the bottom, just to hold make it look a little bit more oversized. I'm happy with that. We can actually bring this down and select this line and just bring it down some more and hit simulate just to create more of like a overhang. Next thing we're going to do is create the arms. So let's create how I normally create the arms is create a symmetric pattern similar to the front. So we're going to use our polygon tool and create a basic shape, just the one side of it. Bring it down like so, and then close it up. Let's bring this, press 2 on our keyboard and bring it straight up. And then we're going to right click and say symmetric pattern, paste that in, and then use the segment sewing tool to sew those two together. And then we can rotate this in our 3D viewport window, 5 on our keyboard to make sure it's good. And then I'm just going to bring this to the left side for orientation purposes, and then we're going to sew this together. Can use the 3D viewport window to do this as well, and let's hit simulate and it should fall. And then we're going to sew the bottom together as well. Okay, so it seems to be pretty tight around the arm, so let's make this a bit bigger. We can just select the whole thing and scale it and press simulate. Still looks pretty tight, so let's carry on making it a bit bigger. I'm going to adjust the sleeves to bring them in a bit, and hit simulate again. We're going to press B on our keyboard to merge the sewing section of the arm. And then I'm just going to adjust this so the shape is a bit better. We can click on our external line, right click and say offset internal line. We're going to set this to, let's do 30 for the arms. And we're going to right click again and say cut and sew. And this is going to be our ribbing section. So let's set this to 35 and simulate. And just like that, we now have our left sleeve. We're going to create that same pattern on the sleeve. So let's use the internal polygon tool to do that. We're going to create just a simple pattern coming out like that. Press enter, just so it aligns with the front and back of the hoodie as well. Let's just fiddle around with this a bit. Cool, I'm happy with that. And we're now going to use the piping tool, and let's do that piping along here as well. You can even do this in the 3D viewport area. Sometimes you actually get better results. Double click to apply it, and then we can use this tool to edit it and just extend it down to the bottom. Let's simulate, and then we're going to change the particle distance of this as well to 0.8 and width to 2, and let's do the same for the back and hit simulate. Cool. We can now copy this by selecting it all, right click, say copy and mirror paste. So right click in our 2D pattern window and mirror paste it, and we should have it on our right arm in the right position as well. And then we're going to use the segment sewing tool to sew to the back and to the front and simulate. You'll notice that the piping hasn't been copied over, so we're just going to redo that. So let's quickly do that. And then we're going to go to edit piping and just extend this so it fits on all the way to the bottom. And when we're happy, we can simulate, and let's set this again to 2 and 0.8 and the back to 2 and 0.8. The next thing we're going to do is change the particle distance to 8. So let's do that. This is going to make it look a lot more high quality and just sit a lot better on our character. Once we're happy with that, we can move on to the hood. Okay, so for the hood, we can delete the hair, which is an accessory. Let's go into our 2D viewport window. Let's use the polygon tool and let's create a base, and just like that. We have our one side. We can delete this point, just bring this in a bit, and then we're going to rotate this in the 3D viewport window. Press 4 to go to the side view, and let's scale this up a bit and bring this out, and we're going to symmetric pattern this like so, and then we're going to sew them together using the free sewing tool. So let's select that, select that. So to sew the hood to the neckline, we're going to use the free sewing tool. You can press M on your keyboard, select the hood piece, and we can press shift and just draw this up. And remember that it's flipped, so make sure to do the opposite side. And we can do that for the other section of the hood as well. And should be good. Just double check everything's looking fine. Looks like this hasn't picked up both sides, so let's press B on our keyboard and delete this, and let's just repeat that. Remember to press shift. And to hide and reveal your avatar, you can press shift A as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. And you can simulate. You should get something like this. We haven't sewed the front together, so let's do that. We can press N to select our segment sewing tool and simulate that. For the ears, if they are sticking out, you can just adjust. Let's create a little bit of extra room at the back here and hit simulate. That looks good. And we're going to create some extra room at the top as well. And let's bring that out and simulate. So now we're going to do is create some ribbing for the front face. So let's select these lines here using Z, right click and say offset internal line. We're going to set this to about 15 and press OK. Click this line now and just make sure your folding render or fold render has been selected. We're not going to create any double patterns because I think sometimes it's not necessary. You can still get excellent results, especially when you render out as a thick material. For the end of this product, I'm actually going to take this hood off because it just looks better down. And let's just reposition this until we're happy. The next thing I'm going to do is add these little dots on the side. So to do that, I'm going to go to my right arm and I'm going to use the graphic pattern tool and just look for the graphic we want to include. So mine's just some little dots and we can place this straight onto the right side of our hoodie. And we can scale this by clicking these little arrows here and just bring it down until we're happy with the results. I'm going to keep it up like that. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And we're going to use the internal ellipse tool to replicate these circles and press shift and just place. It is creating a symmetric internal line, so we can select this pattern, right click and say remove link to editing, and then we can just start to manually place these everywhere. So I'm going to press Control C, Control V to copy that. And then we can just select all of these, Control C, Control V, and just repeat this process until we're finished. Okay, then we can delete this graphic, select the graphic and say delete texture. We can then use the transform graphic tool to right click and delete that. And then we're going to select all of these. I see that they're actually really close to each other on the left side here. So let's just manipulate that a bit. Let's bring it out, just so there's a little bit of a gap. We're then going to select all of these internal lines that we just created, and we're going to right click and say cut and sew, and then we can reposition this, select these and bring this right arm down, and then we can right click and say layer clone over, and we're just going to create a duplicate of that. And let's select all those little dots. We're going to change the particle distance to 3 and hit simulate, and you should see now that it'll create some textures on the arms there. So we're pretty much done. We just need to export it. So let's prep the export. We're going to go into the UV editor, right click in our window and say reset UV to 2D arrangement. We're going to select all and reposition this in the first window or block. So I'm going to bring the arms. I'm going to leave the arms where they are and just bring the front down and keep it like so. And let's make sure these are there. Everything is still in, and then I'm gonna just separate the piping. This is the piping, just separate it so it's easier to change the color later on. So for exporting, we've already set up our UV, so we're gonna just file, export OBJ, select the folder you want to export it to. You can call it whatever you want, I guess. I'm just going to call this custom hoodie. Deselect your avatar, make sure everything as is, pixel count, the higher the better, and make sure diffuse map is selected and press OK. And it should export correctly for you. We're also just going to save this in case for some reason we come back. Let's save, and then we're going to open up Blender. I am using Blender 4.0, so if it looks a little bit different, just go over to Blender. They have released a new update and download that. First thing we're going to do is go into File, Import OBJ, and we're going to look for the file that we exported, the OBJ file, and import that. We can then open up another tab, go to View, Viewport Front, and reposition it until we're happy. And then we can go Shift A to add a camera and press G on our keyboard followed by Z to bring our camera positioning up. And then in our other viewport, we can press G followed by Y and just bring it back. We can then say View, Cameras, set Active Camera, and then let's reposition that, bring it a little bit closer, bring it up. And then I like to go to my top view to add lighting. So we're going to press Shift A and add a spotlight. Then we're going to rotate it along the Y axis by pressing R and Y and just rotate it a little bit, bring it up, pressing G and Z, and then bring it to the side, G and X. Just reposition until you're happy, and then we can open up the material viewport area, and you can see that it's pretty dark at this stage. So let's click on our light and go to our data, bring it up to about 500. It'll be quite bright, but once we adjust the radius of this light, it should start to soften it a bit more. You can even bring it a little bit to the front and just rotate it on the Z axis. We can go into our shader editor now, so let's go open up our shader editor, close this, and then click on our object, and you can see the diffuse has already been added. So we're going to customize this diffuse now. So let's go to where we saved our project, our CLO export, saved it to my desktop. So let's right click on our diffuse, open with Photoshop. And in Photoshop, you can also use Photopia. This will be your left arm, your right arm, your hood, the back, and the front. So we're going to use the rectangle tool to create our color. So I'm going to color everything in like a eggshell color, the favorite. So let's select everything and then go down to our layers, right click and say create clipping mask. And then these are our little dots we created. So we're going to make these black. So let's create another rectangle and paste this straight over. Right click and say create clipping mask. And then I'm going to add some text to the front as per my Instagram post. So let's add a text. We're going to type Opus, which is only possible on Solana, and just position this. Press Ctrl T and scale it down. You kind of have to eyeball it because obviously there's that curve there, but just estimate where it's going to be. We can go File, Save As, and save this as a Photoshop document in the same folder we created the CLO files. Then we can go back to Blender, click on this little file here to open the image, and let's select the Photoshop file. And you can see it's automatically updated. Positioning is great. Looks awesome. The next thing we're going to do is add some texturing. So if you want some free textures, go over to my Discord and look for the official links. Make sure to verify. You have to click on this little thing to get access to everything. So click on that and download this free texture pack. That's the one I'm going to be using today. So I'm just going to do that for you. It's an automatic download link, which is great. So let's download that into our folder. Let's extract this texture. The next thing we do is press on our principal BSD node, press Ctrl Shift T, and then look for our texture folder that we just downloaded. Select both of these and click on open, and everything should be set up for you. It does look quite big now, but we're going to add a value node now. But the only way to get that function is if you go into edit preferences and activate your node wrangler, and you'll get that. We can now press Shift A and type in value and connect this to our scale. Everything will disappear, but as soon as you start scaling, you should get the results you're looking for. If you do want to change the material of, say, the piping that you created, if you change to your viewport shader like this and click on this, go to edit mode. Using the face tool, you want to select these and press Ctrl L, and this will select all the piping along that section. You can then add a new material. So let's just add a material here, for example, call this material, and then you assign it like that. So you have to do that for each one. So I'm just going to do that quickly for you, just to the front. So let's press Ctrl L, assign, and let's press Ctrl L and assign. And then when you go back to your preview mode, go to object mode, you'll see that it's not the same like texture. So we can actually just adjust the color right here and there, which is nice. We don't have to go into Photoshop after doing that. So let's make this white, and we're gonna, I think let's just keep it as is. I just don't want it to be the same texture. So I'm going to make it the same like eggshell color, and we can even make this shiny. So if we go into our principal node and let's adjust the roughness, we can make it a little bit shiny. So from here, I'm going to add a plane to make a backdrop. So let's press Shift A and add a mesh plane. Press R on our keyboard, followed by 90 and X, and then you can press G followed by Z to bring it up, and then just bring it back, and then you have your backdrop. And we can make this, let's add a new material and make this the good old yellow. And then if we want to rotate this and make an animation, we can just open up your timeline over at the bottom here, hit this little auto keying, press R followed by Z, and it will add a key there. And then go to your last frame, press R followed by Z and type in 360, and we should have the rotation going. If you want it to be consistent throughout, you can right click here and go to interpolation mode linear, and then it should be a smooth animation throughout. And just like that, you created a 3D digital piece for your brand. Next thing we're going to do is set up the output settings. So for render, let's just make this a little bit bigger. Let's enable the render region. We can set it to 25. If you're in America, it'll be 24. If you in the rest of the world, it'll be 25. This is like basic 1080 HD settings is 1920 by 1080. Your output settings, you can set that to wherever. And then we're going to change this to FFmpeg video. And then by encoding, there's a little preset button here. Select that and say H.264. Then you can go up to the top left, say render, and that's how you'll render. But just before we do that, we need to go into our renderer and set our max sample rate. Depending on your PC, if you have a really high-end PC, you can go from 300 to 1000. It'll just take a lot longer. But for low spec computers, 128 will do just fine for social media. So set that and make sure in performance you have persistent data on. This will just help render out things faster because like the background is the same throughout. It'll just focus on the shirt and therefore increase the render time. So now we can go render animation, hit render, and it'll start processing your render and make it into a video straight off the bat, which helps a lot. You don't have to do any editing after. If you guys did enjoy this video, please make sure to drop a like, comment, and sub. If you're new here, and don't forget to turn the notification bell on. I post weekly, or at least I try. I have been for the last 3 months, so I do appreciate the support. I'm currently running a 50% sale off my entire site, so make sure to check that out. It's going to be running until the end of this month. And if you do need any help with any 3D digital stuff, make sure to drop into my Discord. Appreciate the support. Like always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.